Okay, we have a quorum, so I'd like to get started while we still have it. Today's meeting is relatively simple. There is one action item, that is I'll move the approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 3rd, 2013.
Move it.
Second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then we have a couple of information items, and then we will be going into executive session, but we will be ending at the end of the executive session and not coming back, since we don't have any other action items. First item that we have on our agenda is a review by Vice Chancellor Sapienza of the financial status. Then I believe we're going to do the non-executive session part of the investment committee.
Correct.
And then we will go into executive session when they reach the part that needs to be in executive session. So I will start by calling upon, as always, Vice Chancellor Sapienza.
Thanks so much, Trustee Pantaleo, and hello, everyone. Hope everyone had a great summer. I want to update you on a couple of items. First and foremost, most importantly, is the introduction of our new University Controller, Len Zananti, who's here today. Len is the former Chief Operating Officer at Hunter College. He also served for many years as the Deputy Director at the Mayor's Office of Management and Budget, and we're so thrilled to have Len here to assume the role as University Controller. Just tremendous background, not only in financial expertise, but also his managerial skills are second to none. So Len, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you, Matt. Just want to say how very delighted and happy I am to be serving in this position, working with a wonderful staff at the University Budget and Finance Office under Mark and Matt and Alan, and serving the Board of Trustees. Thank you very much.
Also want to take this moment, if I can, to recognize our Deputy Controller, Miriam Katowitz. Miriam, for the last 7 months, served as our acting controller and did a terrific job in making sure that we stayed on task. And so, Miriam, we really appreciate the good work you did for the last 7 months, so thank you. Okay, I also wanted to take just a couple of minutes to provide an update on where we are with some of the outstanding budget issues since our last meeting in June. So we had met as a group the first week of June, and several weeks after that, the mayor and the city council announced the budget agreement for fiscal 14. The analysis that we issued that showed what the impact was on CUNY is part of your packages. I don't necessarily want to spend time going through that, but just to give you a brief summary, the budget for the community colleges was at the same level it was in the prior year, and so we have a flat budget for the community colleges in terms of our city funding. But the city did recognize the revenue from the tuition increase that took place for this fall semester, and that was $23 million. And so that increase was included in the mayor's adopted budget. We also received restorations for some of our key programs, like the Black Male Institute, the Dominican Studies Institute, Center for Puerto Rican Studies. We received restorations for all three, and actually increases for all three as well. So we were really grateful about that. The city's financial plan, obviously the budget agreement for fiscal 14 was a balanced budget. There is an out-year gap in fiscal 15 of slightly under $2 billion. But again, considering the city's overall budget is about $70 billion, that should be a manageable number going forward. So for the current year, though, the budget is balanced, and we don't expect any additional cuts at this point. So once the city budget was adopted, that then enabled us to finish up our allocations to the community colleges. At our June meeting, we described what the allocations were. College allocations. It included a compact financing plan of $37.5 million. And so that included the $23 million that we talked about just a minute ago in new tuition money, plus the additional state aid that we received from the state adopted budget, and the self-financing components of additional fundraising and new efficiencies in our budget. And so that's $37.5 million of new dollars in our community college budget for this year. As part of that 37.5, the minimum recommended number of faculty hires that we expect to see back from the community colleges is 135. And so from the senior colleges, the number was 190. And so we're hoping to see an addition of 325 new faculty lines coming out of the compact funds that we allocated this year. And so colleges have been working on their financial plans for the year and getting them to us. We've been reviewing them and working with the colleges on that. So again, we're really grateful that we're able to have such a robust, compact plan for this year. Okay, so that's on the city side and on the community colleges. On the state side, the State Division of Budget did issue their first quarter update recently. Fiscal 14 remains in balance for the state, which is good news. And actually, the state revenues are up, and they're able to pay off some of fiscal 15 liabilities in the current year, which is a good thing. The deficit for fiscal 15, the projected deficit for fiscal 15 on the state side is $1.7 billion, which again, although it sounds like a lot of money, considering the state budget is $130 billion, that should be a manageable number going forward. The governor will release his executive budget in January, and we look forward to that. But considering that the state is, past its first quarter and is showing a strong balance sheet at this point, we don't expect any disruption in terms of mid-year cuts or anything like that from the state. So again, we're in a pretty strong fiscal position at this point in the fiscal year. While I'm mentioning the governor's executive budget, I also want to point out that we have begun work on our fiscal 15 budget request, and at our meeting that is going to be held on November 4th of the Fiscal Committee of the Board of Trustees, we will be presenting to you our budget request for fiscal 15. So what we're doing now is doing our consultations with the student leaders, faculty, Senate, the presidents, and garnering their ideas and their recommendations to put forth for the budget request. So that's coming up as well. So that's where we are. Overall, again, we're in a strong position, and look forward to working with you all on the fiscal 15 budget request.
Thank you. Janet, in spite of the look of complete shock and surprise when I said you had something to say before we went into executive session, do you have anything you'd like to report in the public session?
No, really, we're going to have a couple of presentations, so I think we should probably just go right into executive session.
This is an extremely short public meeting, so I thank everyone who showed in it. Oh, I'm sorry,
Peter.
Trustee Beal.
Just a couple of questions, and you may not be the person who can answer, but at some point, could we have a report on the Blackmail Initiative in terms of its mission and its goals? I mean, we started it a number of years, and its measurable outcomes.
Sure. Well, what I'll do, Trustee Beal, is I'll ask our director of that program, Elliot Dawes, to come to a future meeting and to present that information.
And then the 1.1, it's not a lot of money, but the 1 million for various city council initiatives. Could you give us an indication of what they were, and are they one time, and are there complete funding going forward, or are these things that they started that we then have to find money for going forward?
The overwhelming majority of that 1.1 million is one time only, and the majority of them are council member items. And so it's individual council members making allocations to mostly our campuses. Some of them are managed by the central office, but mostly they're small allocations that are made to our campuses. I would say that in the most part, they're less than $100,000, and therefore various programs at our campuses. Be happy to share the list of what those member items are with the entire committee.
Okay, and my only concern is that, we don't start things that then every year it was a member item, and then the next year it isn't funded, and then we look like we're withdrawing the program. So to the extent we understand what those member items are and what the continuation of that funding availability and the campuses understand that, that would be very helpful. And then,
Just, if I
Go
could, just
ahead.
a point of information on how we handle that. I think that probably one of the other committees, and it should be Frank Sanchez, who should report. I mean, I think that Sapienza would be responsible for some of the budget pieces, but I think that some of the questions that you're raising, which I think are valid, is for us to hear about some of the programmatic objectives, and that perhaps that would be more in Frida's committee to handle, just from the standpoint of how we deal with it.
okay, well, given that some of us, and
So
I
I
don't know
think-
if those are programs, we would just find
I
out.
think that maybe, Chancellor Kelly, you can,
Absolutely.
give us some advice on what's the
Yeah,
best committee so that we can,
Both on the Blackmail
Expense,
Initiative
yeah.
and on the questions about appropriations and initiatives that Trustee Beal raises. I'll arrange for a report to the committee.
And then last but not least, how are we in enrollment? Is there someone, are we meeting our enrollment objectives and therefore on our individual campus financial objectives?
We have some preliminary data on the fall semester. Overall, as a university collectively, our enrollment is up, but it's up less than 1%. So it's basically flat compared to where we were last fall. Some campuses are up a few percentage points, some are down a few percentage points, but overall enrollment compared to last fall is basically flat. It's up, like I said, less than one percentage point.
We are somewhat concerned about continuing decline in graduate enrollment because of our overinvestment in education programs, working to diversify that portfolio. But to the undergraduate level, generally across the board, we are where we ought to be.
And I assume going forward, our projections are flat enrollment going forward? We're not projecting continued growth like we've seen in the past, or?
Yeah, I think we are expecting flat or small increases going forward in the out years. We certainly don't expect to have the sustained growth that we had, several years ago. And quite honestly, I think that most folks felt that those kind of increases weren't sustainable, given our funding limitations, given our space limitations, and so we certainly expect a more manageable type of enrollment going forward.
That said, we are also concerned about increasing competition. You and I have talked about that, Trustee Beal, across the region, and are attentive to that and are focusing attention on recruitment strategies.
Quick question, is that flat trajectory, does that hold true for both the four-year and our community colleges?
It was about the same across both. Both were up by, less than 1 percentage points collectively. If you look at the senior colleges collectively and the community colleges collectively.
One factor on this has to do with improving economic conditions and folks not pursuing higher education at quite the same numbers that they were during that huge surge. So we're looking at stability for a while and, in fact, focusing our attention, as I just said, on positioning ourselves vis-a-vis recruiting the very best students we can.
Would seem with a down economy, our value proposition would be a hedge to maintain enrollment.
I think so, too, and I think with all of the attention from the President's higher education plan that I assume most of you were aware of, the value that CUNY offers is foregrounded, and I think it has to do with sending a message to us about foregrounding our marketing issues to emphasize quality, not simply bargain. The efforts that the President is putting into play to establish a scorecard for colleges, which does not require congressional approval, calls for a 2015 deadline on that. We have a task force impaneled to ensure that CUNY's value is fully recognized in that scorecard.
Great. Anything else before we go into executive session? That said, public session's adjourned. We'll now go into executive session. Come out of executive session, we are now back into a public session with just one specific action item, which is the approval of the minutes of the Subcommittee on Investments from June 3rd. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? With hearing no objection, the minutes are approved and accepted, and now we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you. Adjourn.